Hello everybody, thanks for coming today. I'm wearing my sunglasses today because I'm going on a picnic. You might want to go get your sunglasses too. Well, today's story isn't a parable that Jesus told, but a story about Jesus himself, something he did. To me, I kind of think it was like Jesus was living out a parable because it is indeed showing us what living in God's kingdom is like. Today's story is the feeding of the 5,000. And actually, it could very well be called the feeding of the 15 or 20,000 because the number 5,000 just referred to the men that were there. If you think of their wives and the children that were with them, it was way more people, which really makes this an amazing story. Before I start reading, I want to fill you in on what happened just before. It had been a very busy time for Jesus and his disciples. Jesus had been doing a lot of teaching and healing people. I could well imagine that he and his disciples were tired. And then they had also heard some sad news. So Jesus wanted to go off to a quiet place and have some time to himself. Has that ever happened to you? Have you ever wanted some quiet time just to have some time to yourself to think and reflect? Well, Jesus and his disciples got in a boat and went to a quiet place across the lake. But people in the town saw him go and they followed him. Some of them even got there before they did. So now I'm going to read you the story. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them and healed their sick. As evening approached, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food." But Jesus replied, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." They said to him, "That would take more than half a year's wages. Are we to go and spend that much on bread and give it to them to eat?" "How many loaves do you have?" he asked. "Go and see." So they went out amongst the people to see if anyone had any food. They found just one little boy who had brought something along, and they said to Jesus, "We have 5 loaves and 2 fish." "Bring them here to me," he said. Then Jesus directed them to have all the people sit down in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in groups of hundreds and 50s. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and looking up to heaven, Jesus gave thanks and broke the bread. Then he gave the loaves and the fish to the disciples, and the disciples gave them then to the people. They all ate and all were satisfied, and the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. The number of those who ate that day was about 5,000 men, as well as their women and children. Wow, wow. Now that is an amazing story. I think, boy, Jesus sure showed them who he was. He was God. That was an amazing miracle. And that's a fact you can know for sure. Jesus is indeed God. But you know what? He also showed them his Father's heart, a heart that is full of compassion. The disciples had wanted to send the people away, but Jesus said no. He cares for our needs. And as tired as Jesus was, he had spent the day caring for all those people that had followed them, and then he fed them. And you know something else I noticed in this story? Well, being that Jesus is God, he could very well have fed all the people himself. But after he blessed the food, he gave it to his disciples to hand out to the people. He was including them in doing his kingdom work. And God invites us as well to carry out his work here on earth, to care for people, to show compassion and understanding, to be loving and accepting, to helping them with their needs, to share God's teachings. There are lots of people in this world that have lots of needs, and I think God is asking us, what can you do to help? I'm sure it felt like an impossible task to his disciples. Can you imagine being asked to feed thousands of people, and all you had to begin with was 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread? It required that the disciples trust Jesus. And God asks us to trust him too. We may come across some task that seems insurmountable. That means it's so big it doesn't seem like it can get done. But God encourages us to just start doing the work and watch what amazing things that he can do with what we have started. God knows our needs, and he is always there for us. That sounds like a song I know. I know a song called Always There For You. It's from this CD, 5G Discovery, and it's a really cool song. You're going to hear They Will Sing a line, and then we will echo. Let's go. It's a great song. Isn't that a great song? Jesus is always there for you. Well, for our craft today, I thought, since there was food in the story, I thought, well, maybe we're going to make a restaurant. And I'm going to make a rooftop restaurant. It's going to sit right on top of the hotel. So what you're going to need is some kind of container where you can take all the stickies off so that it's a clear plastic and have the lid. It was this way to begin with, but we're going to use it this way. And then I found a lid for a peanut butter jar, but any kind of lid. I really like this one because I like the color blue, but then I thought I'm going to put a tablecloth on top, so I kind of covered up the blue. Anyways, so I had a table, I put a tablecloth, and then I got some lids. I'm using them for dishes. I'm going to be putting them on my table. Then I'm going to put the table on the floor of my restaurant. I will glue this down. It's kind of sliding all over right now. Put it on the floor of my restaurant. And then have you ever seen these rooftop restaurants where they've got these windows all the way around, and it goes round and round and round. Well, not that fast. It goes around slow on the top of these tall buildings. Well, that's what I'm making as a rooftop restaurant. And then I took another small lid and I covered it with some fancy pipe cleaner and a little pom-pom, and I'm pretending it's like this flashing light that's on top saying, come and eat. So then I'm going to put this on top of my hotel. I will glue it down later so it all doesn't fall. Well, I hope you have fun today making your restaurant, or this week I should say, making your restaurant, and may it remind you of God's compassionate heart, how he cares about all our needs, and he invites us to be a part of his kingdom work, caring for others and helping with their needs. Bye-bye for now.